Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to see so many people joining us today. Welcome all to the EWORA event. I see that the numbers of attendees are still going on. I see also President of EWORA is already online. Welcome, Professor Gulsun Saglamer. Welcome. We have already other board members I see, and speakers and participants. We are all on board. Maybe we can wait for a second because we had about 60 registrants to the webinar. Of course, we expect the numbers to grow a little bit before starting the event. So please, maybe 1 minute more, as I see that we still have the connecting people. Thank you all for attending. So just a moment, and in several minutes we will start. Welcome new people who are joining. So, dear colleagues, I guess everyone who planned to attend is already here. Others might join us later. Now we will begin with our program. Let me introduce myself. I am Inga Žalėnienė, Rector of Mykolas Romeris University from Lithuania, acting in my position since March 2019. I am honored that from this year, I am also an EWORA board member and IAU board member. I am honored to moderate this 5th EWORA webinar, Challenges of Gender Equalities in Higher Education during the times of turbulences. Before starting our first presentation, I would like to make some short introduction to the theme of our webinar. The system of higher education is one of the areas where gender equality plays an important role, as we all are responsible for the education and competences of people who will shape the future of social, economic, cultural, and technological advance of our societies and the development and prosperity of our countries. In the times of ongoing turbulences, climate change, COVID-19 pandemic, technological shifts, geopolitical threats, and other, we all see dangers for the progress of the last decade in all areas of gender equality. COVID-19 has undoubtedly impacted higher education sector, which had to move from the classroom-based pedagogies towards distance learning from March 2020. Our living spaces were transformed into places of learning, childcare, household duties, and work. And today we are going to discuss the impacts of current turbulences on gender equality, on women working in academia, on their research outputs. Also, we will present possible solutions, best practices, and undertaken measures on European countries and different academic communities levels. And it's my honor to work with EWORA, European Women Rectors Association, an international non-profit association established with an aim to promote the role of women in leadership positions in academic sector and to advocate gender equality in higher education and research at European and international scales. And today we have a unique opportunity to welcome our president of EWORA, Professor Gülsün Saglame, former rector of Istanbul Technical University, to deliver some introductory words. Dear Professor Gülsün, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Inga. Thank you very much for this very impressive introduction done by you. And I'm very glad that the fifth EWORA webinar is organized by your university, by yourself. Dear colleagues, good afternoon and welcome to the fifth EWORA webinar. First of all, I would like to express my thanks Professor Inga Žalėnienė, who is the rector of Mykolas Romeris University and also a board member of EWORA. She has kindly accepted to organize this webinar and will be chairing it today. Today's webinar is titled, as she already informed us, Challenges of Gender Equality in Higher Education During the Times of Turbulences. And I'm looking forward to listen to presentations from our distinguished speakers. Before I give the floor to them, I would like to highlight few issues in regard to today's subject. Dear colleagues, gender inequalities in academia is an important challenge of higher education. Several studies show that since the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic, gender disparities have increased globally. Women are still not equally represented with men in top management levels of higher education and research. The global crises, such as natural disasters or pandemics, create negative impact on all kinds of change processes and becomes the first agenda item to restructure the priorities of the populations accordingly all over the globe. What we have been experiencing since March 2020 is a very solid example for this argument. It's obvious that COVID-19 pandemic deepened the gender imbalances at all levels of our lives. The gendered burdens of academia, such as implicit bias, the challenge of work-life balance, gendered promotion structures, gender pay gap, or resistances to gender equality policies are all need to be reconsidered while the world is rapidly changing. We need to carefully tackle the turbulences and the gender challenges together in order to achieve a sustainable development in higher education and research. It is now more important than before to enhance policies and actions to empower women to eliminate gender inequalities in order to respond more effectively to the global crisis. Dear colleagues, before I finish, I would like to thank Professor Inga Žalėnienė once again, who created this opportunity for us to gather and have a discussion today. We have three distinguished speakers today. I would like to thank all our speakers. Professor Natalia Mazeikiene, Mrs. Birute Sabatauskay, and Dr. Ruta Riolti Verschore. If I was not able to pronounce the names correctly, I apologize for that. My special thanks to the General Secretary of EWORA, Hülya Çağlayan, and Giedre Kauziene from Mykolas Romeris University for their excellent organization. I also would like to thank our participants for joining us today. I wish you a very successful workshop, and thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Gulsun, for your valuable thoughts and introduction to the thematics of our today's workshop. Before giving a word to our first speaker, I would like to agree some logistical details with all the attendees which are here today. We are going to hear 3 separate presentations of 15 minutes each. After each presentation, we will reserve 5 minutes for several questions and comments from the audience. And I kindly remind you, asking the question, to raise a hand or simply write a question in the chat box. After all the 3 presentations, at the end of today's webinar, we will make a panel discussion. I hope that it will be fruitful, and then I shall try to summarize the thoughts and ideas, and will make some closing remarks. So returning back to our program, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce our first speaker. Professor Dr. Natalija Mažeikienė represents Vytautas Magnus University from Lithuania. She works at the Department of Social Work, takes part as the researcher at the Horizon 2020 project sphere, supporting and implementing plans for gender equality in academia and research. She will share her insights on gender equality work in turbulent times, new challenges and opportunities. So, dear Professor Natalija, I hand the word to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. It is great pleasure and honor for me to participate in this event and to share our ideas with you. And now I would like to share screen. My presentation is about turbulent times and how gender equality policies could be implemented at higher education institutions during turbulent times. And in the beginning, I would like to discuss the notion of turbulences. And in scientific and popular literature, we find the description of specific phenomenon, VUCA time. It is an attempt to describe conditions in the late modernity when people, individuals, groups, organizations feel disturbed because of facing volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous events, processes, and phenomena. And leaders of organizations are invited to find proper address and proper response to VUCA times. And today I would like to discuss the notion of turbulency and turbulent times in relation to neoliberalism and COVID, and how COVID-19 and how these phenomena are interconnected and create additional feeling of uneasiness. And also additionally, I would like to discuss adequate institutional gender policies and possible responses to these turbulences. And in my discussion, I would refer to our institutional experience of working on gender equality plan, on discussing gender equality institutional mechanisms, processes, And Vytautas Magnus University has been participating in Project SPEAR, Horizon 2020 program, SWAFs, which is devoted to design and implementation of gender equality plans, and in collaboration with partners from Denmark, Sweden, Austria, Hungary, Bulgaria, Portugal, Lithuania, we work on our individual institutional gender equality plans. And in scientific and popular managerial literature, we find the description of turbulences, and one of the important processes which is especially discussed is a neoliberal turn. And many sociologists like Anthony Giddens, for example, speak about late modernity when several factors are intertwined. It is acceleration of new technologies, marketization, and unexpected direction of development of digital technologies and biotechnologies. In universities, academic capitalism and neoliberal turn are discussed very broadly, and many authors emphasize marketization, global competitiveness, universities' orientation toward the commercialization of studies and research, when education and research become commodities. Then also new discourse on productivity emerged, and university strive for development of entrepreneurship processes, and together with that entrepreneurship approach and discourse. Referring to Lithuanian experience, we can mention that a neoliberal turn in Lithuania started in 2008, and when reform of higher education was initiated by conservative and liberal parties, and many important mechanisms were introduced which promoted marketization and student voucher system, new governance in universities by empowering external stakeholders, legal status of university change, salary systems, funding of universities. So what we can from our experience and what we can see from our experience and observations, that some new functions appeared: marketing, communication, international relations, and it gave a chance to women, new opportunity to become vice rectors for international relations, development, communication, community development, and number of vice rectors women increased, and we even see now that today we have 6 women rectors and 15 women vice rectors, when in the beginning of the reform there were just 3 vice rectors at all universities. So we see that some new opportunities appeared for women, but at the same time, in literature, we find description of disadvantages, and we find description of precarious, uncertain working conditions, difficulties to reconcile work and family, long hour culture. Then gender differences in STEM became even more salient. Then some authors describe feminization and remasculinization of the academy, when more men come to disciplines where research is commercialized. But still, feminization is one of the interesting processes which we observe and notice. And referring to example of Lithuania, we see very strong feminization. Lithuania is one of the countries where number of women in higher education is about 57%, but also number of women in humanities and social sciences is the highest, one of the highest in Europe, but very few women, a very small part of women participate in STEM disciplines. So we observe horizontal segregation and vertical segregation and very specific intersection of these two forms of segregation. And precarious and part-time contracts, it is specific process where and when Lithuania has its specific profile. Many employees work in short-term contracts and part-time contracts. Also, we made research was done at the universities, Vilnius University, Magnus University, and participants, top managers of at our university stressed that and emphasized high competition of universities for finding stressful working conditions. So we see that these spread of entrepreneurial and neoliberal ideas and practices created a special discourse, and many universities started to refer to entrepreneurial justification for gender equality. For instance, university try to emphasize that gender equality is needed in order to promote innovation through diversity and creativity, to create creative, innovative research environment, to include more women in research. But also we can notice that there is social justice discourse, which is very important, and social justice discourse supports ideas on structural reasons and biases, on discrimination, and on necessity to promote right-based principles. And in our process of preparing gender equality plan at our university, we use both discourses, social justice discourse and the discourse on productivity efficiency, since we need to be entrepreneurial university and at the same time as a university which promotes civic ideals, we need to refer to social justice discourse. Also one more turbulent phenomenon is COVID-19, and actually we see that women need to combine child care responsibilities with work, and many universities tried to create response to that in the time of DG-demic, digital plus pandemic, and we see that referring to works and articles of researchers who made research on these new responses, we still see that universities are not successful in creating adequate response to COVID, are not sufficiently addressing necessity to create flexible time arrangements, and actually also certain recommendations could be provided. It is to organize training for staff, explaining necessity to help employees, women to combine work and family responsibilities. So authors reveal not very optimistic picture of creating adequate policy responses. And as I would like to refer to our attempts and our experience of creating a gender equality plan, and the process of design and implementation of gender equality plan coincides with the timeline of pandemics. And if even we created in the beginning certain measures on prevention of sexual harassments, on strengthening gender dimension education and research, during pandemics, we understood that specific measures oriented toward flexible work arrangements should be created, and we plan to create gender-sensitive PhD supervision guidelines to adjust existing flexible work arrangements for women, and to pay more attention to training and to directing these measures not only on all employees, but specifically on women and parents with family responsibilities. So providing these general observations and conclusions, we see that in Lithuanian universities, marketization and that universities are exposed to marketization and neoliberal pressures, and the specific intersection of vertical and horizontal segregation noticed in STEM faculties, and if even neoliberalism is viewed as a new chance for women, at the same time, feminization due to low salaries, also stressful work conditions, all these factors show that that neoliberal academia, neoliberal turn created more problems than opportunities. And for us as a university with humanities, social sciences, and with natural and exact sciences, it is very important to see differences between these two different parts of academia and to try to find adequate responses to these separate parts. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Professor Natalia, for such useful, practical, and inspiring presentation. Dear colleagues, now we have time for a couple of questions. If someone has a question, please raise your hand. Before you do this, I can say several words. Professor Natalia, it's very interesting your view on this neoliberal term of higher education, and how we all have to balance this entrepreneurial mindset, market mindset, and indicators, and this humanistic paradigm and social justice. But of course, the recent challenge which we are facing is pandemic, and it became a new reality of the entire world. It challenged the world, societies, and our professional, our private lives. But of course, de facto progress achieved in gender equality is visible, and pandemic also for some category of women opened new, completely new opportunities. And I want to ask from your point of view, how these opportunities during the COVID-19 might be used to decrease labor segregation, traditionally in female-dominated and male-dominated disciplines.
new opportunities of COVID-19, actually, I found in literature that Australian universities regretted that they were not able to create this adequate response by moving from already existing arrangements of flexible work. But in our case, pandemic was opportunity to see how employees can work at home. Actually, it was first experience when we understood that it is important to formulate result-oriented, outcome-oriented practices and to give assignments to employees, and it's not necessary just to spend your time at workplace, you can do work at home. So it initiated discussion in organization, how we can move toward another culture of work, and when departments are oriented toward outcomes. But at the same time, it creates additional problems because we all discussed that employees receive more tasks, and now we are in the process of negotiation to make some match between opportunities of employees and women and needs of employers. So I think it was besides this acceleration in digital technologies, that we all started to use digital technologies, but for organizations also was good opportunity. It has been good opportunity to move to result-oriented work culture.
Thank you, Professor Natalia. Do we have another question? Please connect who want to prolong and have opportunity to ask question for Professor Natalia.
Sorry, I had a question. I saw that the hand was raised by Aiste Dromantaitė. Did she want to ask a question?
Okay, so
no,
yeah,
I just
please ask.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to thank for the really interesting presentation, and no, not at the moment. I don't have questions. Thank you.
So, dear colleagues, could we move on? Thank you, Professor Natalia, and we will meet at the panel discussion, and of course we will have a possibility to give more questions to you. So our second speaker is a special person, Ms. Birutė Sabatauskaitė, who is a current equal opportunities ombudswoman of the Republic of Lithuania, expert of European Equality Law Network, also former director of Lithuanian Center for Human Rights, and also alumni of my represented Mykolas Romeris University. But unfortunately, due to Birutė's busy schedule and important state commitments, our ombudswoman is not able to participate live, but she kindly recorded her presentation, which is entitled Good Practices and Challenges Working in Gender Equality Mainstreaming, and shared today her insights, achievements, and ideas with us. And maybe, hopefully, she will be able to join live during the panel discussion. So, dear colleagues, please start the video record.
Hello, dear members of academia, other participants of this webinar. It is an honor for me to attend this. I'm sorry I'm not there with you live, but I hope you will find the presentation fruitful for your discussion further on. Let me just share my presentation with you so it's easier to follow it. I'm going to talk a little bit about good practices and challenges working in gender equality mainstreaming as an equal opportunities ombudsperson. I've been in this position only since April this year. However, I've been working on issues of non-discrimination and gender equality for quite a while in research, but also proactive work such as trainings and advocacy. So just a little bit shortly about our activities. The laws that mainly regulate our activities prohibit discriminations in the fields of state and municipal institutions, education, employment, consumer protection, and other organizations. And there are grounds of discrimination that are mentioned in the law and the duty bearers. But today, I'm not going to talk about our activities investigating complaints. I'm going to talk a little bit about proactive activities and what challenges we face in our proactive activities in trying to work to reach gender equality and in our activities on gender equality mainstreaming. But to go a little bit deeper into the topic, just a short reminder from taking a look into data. So Lithuania is doing relatively well among other countries when we talk about gender employment gap. However, when we take a look how the quarantine affected or how taking care of children is shared among women and men, we see a huge discrepancy. So it is clear from the data that the quarantine affected women tremendously because they had to balance their work and household activities and taking care of children. And the amount of work of household activities has even increased than before. And we can take a look what was the amount of household work and cooking food daily and how it was shared among persons depending on their gender or sex. So when we talk about single people, just a short reminder from previous data, so 71% of women and 53% in, when we talk about data in Lithuania, and you can see the EU data below, 53% of men were involved in household and cooking food daily activities. Then we can see a couple of without children, how the amount of work has increased for women and has lowered for men, and even bigger gap when we talk about couple with children, how the work is shared. And when we talk about professional segregation, this is quite an old data, but the numbers are pretty similar these days. So we can see when we talk about healthcare, arts and humanities, social sciences, journalism and information, education, and later on, probably professional choices. We can also see that during pandemic, these are mostly the professions where the frontline workers are during the pandemics. So both work in professional sphere and at home has increased, and of course one affects each other. So I'm gonna move a little bit now to talk about the proactive work. Perhaps you can take some of the examples and compare to the situation in your countries, or critically evaluate how much work needs to be done or what more can be done, or any other good examples that you can bring to the discussion. So our work focuses on ensuring equal opportunities in the labor market, ensuring gender equality in municipalities, prevention of discrimination, and other proactive work. So a little bit about ensuring equal opportunities in the labor market. We think that it is tremendously important to mainstream equal opportunities, but in order to do that, many times when we talk with different workplaces, employers, or representatives of employers, universities, we see that people think that in order to mainstream equal opportunities, it is enough to organize one seminar or to pass a policy document, and that's it. Equality is ensured, and here you go. Also, it is important to mention when you even talk about involvement of people in different workplaces or universities who are working on strategic approach to ensure equal opportunities mainstreaming in workplace or universities, it is mostly viewed that it is a women's job to do it. So, you know, the old, not very good attitude of saying that gender equality is only for women. So you can see what we try to encourage the employers or universities to do, or any other educational facilities, is to basically firstly evaluate how equal opportunities affect each of us personally and professionally, then to do the analysis of the situation, to carry out the analysis of the situation in the workplace. How do employees feel in the organization, and how are equal opportunities ensured, and whether this perception of employees equals to that of the employer. And then move to careful planning, how to develop equal opportunities policy and action plan, but not the one that you just write up as a document and put it in a drawer and forget about it, but the one that needs to be in the psyche of the organization, that needs to be in action all the time. So we try to train people and to provide training and to provide recommendations, what aspects are also important while implementing the equality plan. And of course, then we provide the tools to assess the situation. So what changes have been achieved in the organization, what needs to be done further. So in order to measure the equal opportunities, how it is perceived by the employees and the employers, we have developed a few tools. So the gender equality ruler, it is a set of criteria that helps to evaluate the situation and allows to compare the situation of gender equality in different organizations, but also can be used as a type of monitoring tool to track change over time. We also have another ruler on equal opportunities, which is a broader term and which covers more grounds, how equal opportunities are ensured, for example, for people with disabilities and other, for people depending on their ethnicity, other backgrounds, descent, religion, and so on. So we also provide with the steps to mainstream equal opportunities, and it is important that after the evaluation, the organization moves to the planning and implementation phase, and after evaluation, we provide recommendations to the organizations. And I'm sure Ruta, who's also here, will share or has already shared also about their experience doing it. We also provide various other tools on the website about equal opportunities in the workplace, about reasonable accommodation for people with disabilities in the workplace, and so on and so far. And then we also award those who have done and who have reached a lot, depending on the activities that they have done and how much progress they have made. A little bit about our work in ensuring equal opportunities in ensuring the gender equality mainstreaming in municipalities. We can see is just an illustration that if we take all the mayors that are existing in Lithuania, there are 55 men and 5 women. So it's obviously not the only data that is assessed when we talk about gender equality in municipalities, but just a short illustration for today. So we provide the municipalities with tools and information, but also trainings in all 60 municipalities, and it's a currently ongoing activities where we also help them to assess the situation using statistical tools by the Department of Statistics, but we train how to do that. And we also provide the tools how to evaluate how the different services are planned for people in a certain municipality, depending on the data. An old good example, for example, when the cleaning of snow is planned in the winter, what priorities are given to cleaning the pathways or cleaning the streets. And according to the data, most of the users of streets, and usually the streets are firstly cleaned before the pathways are cleaned in winter. However, a lot of women have expressed that it is very difficult because it's mostly them, and mostly affects women because it's mostly them bringing children to school or kindergarten and so on. So, and the ones that are walking more or taking public transport more than men. So we have developed a gender equality monitoring tool, which allows them to assess the situation in different municipalities. Depending on the color, it shows the situation in different municipalities. And we're looking forward to seeing the results next year after all of the municipalities are trained. We have also developed an interactive online course on gender mainstreaming to ensure that municipality employees and employers can assess how they plan the services, but also understand on how to mainstream gender equality. I have to be honest with you that when doing these trainings, and again working on it, we have challenges with some of the municipalities, again with the same issue, sometimes people thinking that it is the duty of women working in municipality to ensure that gender mainstreaming is ensured. Other proactive activities concentrate on, sorry for a mistake there, concentrate on prevention of sexual harassment and providing recommendations to employers and to universities in assessing the situation, ensuring that there are tools in place, and making sure that everyone is on board, understanding what sexual harassment it is, what actions constitute sexual harassment, and what are the institutions where people can complain, but also how to make sure that there are mechanisms, transparent mechanisms, and also a possibility to report sexual harassment anonymously in the university, but also any other type actually of discrimination. We have also prepared in cooperation with Ombudsperson for academic ethics, how to ensure equal opportunities and academic ethics in the events organized by the universities or any other type of research activities. We also do a lot of work on talking about the balance, work-life balance, or reconciling work and private life, and organize campaigns. But of course, this is one of the most important topics also that needs to be addressed in the time of the pandemics, especially because when we talk about the progress achieved during many years of work on gender equality, we can see that the pandemic has an effect on that work and might have an effect for many years. So to move a little bit further then to the challenges that we're facing, and I'm sure many of you are facing, is firstly the attitudes and lack of reflection in both sometimes among employers, employees, and also in some academia, about firstly the numbers of gender inequality, but also how it affects our daily life and how it affects our professional lives, how it affects our abilities to carry out research work, to work and to try to manage everything at the same time. also recently we found out during the research, that there's this wish for women that they would work as if they didn't have children, but also would raise children as if they didn't have any work, which is of course unrealistic. And there's really, of course, lack of policies and legal documents that would help to ensure this work-life balance. And this brings me to another challenge, which is work-life balance and its effects during the time of the pandemic. I think there needs to be a lot more research and evaluation how pandemic affected people depending on their gender when we talk about work-life balance. Challenges also, there are some challenges also concerning lack of strategic approach in trying to reach gender equality, in our opinion, because as I mentioned before, a lot of employers and companies and universities think that it is enough to do one thing per year in order to reach gender equality. However, we see more and more positive examples, and of course your organization is one of them that is trying to encourage a strategic approach, and a lot of universities developing really strategic tools in order to ensure gender equality involving everyone, not only academia, but other employees who are working in universities, but also students, and then also encouraging society at large. It also brings me to another challenge that both sometimes those who are responsible for policy formation, but also the implementation, expect for quick results without much efforts and without investments, or foreseeing enough money in the budget, and actually ensuring that the budgets are formed based on measurements, how different spheres affect people depending on their gender or sex. And the huge challenge, which in my opinion, and according to some data, has become even more active during the pandemic times, are the anti-gender equality movements, which sometimes cross with other type of movements. Of course, the list can continue, and I'm sure many of you can share many daily experiences, but also experiences from your professional and academic life about how the current situation affects gender equality and what we have reached. So this is just a short presentation about some of the work that we do. I could go on and go on further, but it was an honor to present some of our activities in this webinar, and I wish you a fruitful discussion. Looking forward to see it online. Thank you very much, and in case you would like to contact us, here are our contacts.
Many thanks to our ombudswoman, Birute, and for her insightful presentation and an overview of current situation here in Lithuania, ongoing initiatives, challenges to address for the future. And from my side, I can only express my joy, but we as a country have established the Office of Equal Opportunities Ombudsperson in 1999, which through the period of 20 years, collaborating with NGOs, academic communities, and other actors relating to equal opportunities, made a huge hard work and established real changes in society and separate communities. And Birute hasn't mentioned current progressive changes in gender equality in Lithuania. We want to say that 2 of our 3 highest officials of the state are women. Speaker of the Parliament and Prime Minister. They are women. As of period of new Prime Minister, we now have a quite good representation of 43% women in the government. And the situation in women in university sector is also changing to the better, as during the 3 years period, we have already 6 women rectors elected, and we understand that it is just a beginning. There are a lot of challenges, of course, to overcome in the future, but I'm sure that we as a country, we as academic communities are on the right path. So, dear colleagues, as we do not have a possibility to ask questions as Birute wasn't with us lively, maybe if she will be able, she will join our panel discussion. So it's my honor and pleasure to introduce our third speaker. Our third speaker is Dr. Rūta Ruolytė Vershore, Equal Opportunities Coordinator at Vilnius University, Lithuania. She holds a PhD in social sciences, sociology. More than a decade, Rūta has been working in non-governmental sector with the topic of human rights and equal opportunities. She is specializing in disability and higher education aspects, also LGBTI+ and other diversity issues. Dear Rūta, you are welcome to start your presentation on the experiences of developing gender equality field, the case of Vilnius University. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It is really a great honor and also a pleasure to participate in EWORA event, in EWORA webinar. And I will share with you what are our experiences at Vilnius University working, oh, I'm sorry, it's not the right one, working with gender equality. So to start with, just a short information on Vilnius University context. It's the oldest university in Lithuania. It's more than 440 years old, and it's the largest. We have more than 24,000 students and 5,000 academic and non-academic staff. So it is multidisciplinary, international, metropolitan university. And we are working, well, we could say, we are working already 6 years, to be proud that we are working 6 years with the equal opportunities. At the same time, in the span of 440 years, it's very little. And now I would like to share with you a bit of angle of sex disaggregated data to see what is the situation of Vilnius University. So as we can see, if we would take European Union gender equality balance zone, so we are really 40-60%. So we would see that the distribution between Vilnius University employees it fits in gender balance zone. If we would see between academic and non-academic staff, we would see that between non-academic staff there is a bit more women than men, just to be that it would be easier to read the graphs, that gray color represents women and pink color represents men. If we would see analyze the data of university governing bodies, we would see a slightly bit different numbers between women and men, whereas women are represented less than men. And we could, if we would see distribution of deans and vice deans in Vilnius University, it is data from 2020, we would see really the numbers in gender balance. And you know, we could stop there and we could say, oh, so we are just fine, there is no problems. But it is current situation. At the moment we are right here, but anytime, you know, the situation can change. So later on I will be talking about our gender equality plans, which we will be implementing in order to guarantee sustainability in this field, because we never know, if we would take an example what now is happening in Poland or Hungary, how political waves can change our reality, which would affect also higher education institutions. Also, I would like to share its interesting data about gender distribution within academic career stages. And if we will see that in Vilnius University, there is 65% of female students and 35% of male students, that both curves, they turn over when we reach both in pedagogical career and research career stages. We can see that in grade A, the curves really turns over, that we have a vice versa situation, that the highest not top management, but the highest academic positions are taken and dominated by men, and women are in minority. Also here, it is a distribution of students by gender and study cycle. So we can see that with each study level, the number between female and male students are coming, let's say, to balance zone. And at the same time, we can already give ourselves questions, why, well, is it because women start to have more responsibilities in their personal life with bringing children or other care responsibilities, let's see, so, or there are other reasons. So it was a quick overview about sex disaggregated data. Here is a short overview now of our linear year-by-year development of equal opportunities field in Vilnius University. And not to read all the documents we have prepared, I would summarize it that from those years we have both human resources, starting from Rector, who is of community affairs and organizational development, who is responsible for implementation of equal opportunities at Vilnius University. And also we are community development department is accountable to this Rector, and we have 2 full-time positions for one is a disability coordinator, and one full-time position is divided between 2 equal opportunity coordinators. Also, what we have, on 2017 years, on 2017, we had a strategical document approved by the Senate on working with students with disability. In 2020, we already had a strategy approved also by the Senate, working with diversity and equal opportunities, where we include, where we extend our spectrum of working with equal opportunities by adding to disability gender, cultural diversity, and social background angles, and also anti-discrimination in general. At the moment, we are developing Vilnius University Gender Equality Plan. So maybe to really sum up is that to work, let's say, with gender equality, it's already, as a background, is easier because we already have and human resources and experiences of data collection of sex segregated data from the years before. Here is a visual structure of responsibilities in Vilnius University. So the pink color represents all the bodies in university who are responsible for implementation of equal opportunities activities. The green color represents discrimination prevention and intervention bodies. So we have a trust line where people can either be it students or be it staff members can write anonymous or not anonymous about the cases of if they experience themselves or if they noticed about sexual harassment, discrimination, bullying, mobbing, and others. Also, we have a central academic ethics committee, and such committees exist in each of the faculties. And then we are accountable for the Senate, and we are each year giving reports about diversity and equal opportunities activities implementation in Vilnius University. So to go back a bit, when in 2020 we accepted the strategy on diversity and equal opportunities, it aimed at creating study and work environment which promotes individual, social, and cultural diversity and ensures equal opportunities for everybody, where there was given more attention to and specific attention to gender equality. And in upcoming few years, we had a plan, and we almost implemented the plan of preparing gender equality plan of the whole university, and also preparing the guidelines for gender inclusive language, which we also created for Lithuanian language. Also what we have, it is sexual harassment prevention distant learning courses, which at the moment are also being translated into English. So this is the issue, well, it's our main prevention measure on sexual harassment, and in upcoming years, we would like that such course would be obligatory for all students and staff in order to, well, to have a safe study and work environment. Now, a bit about Project Spear I will mention, because Natalia Mažeikienė already have mentioned and talked about this project. So I would say that Vilnius University and Vytautas Magnus University, we were lucky to participate in this International Horizon project and to be able to prepare gender equality plans with how to say, with the help of big network, with having a lot of discussions and having time to have analysis of our institutions. And for the moment, we already have in the context of this project, we already have in Vilnius University 5 faculties who have individual gender equality plans approved in the councils of their faculties. And we are at the moment preparing, and next week it will be presented in the Senate, overall Vilnius University gender equality plan. And all these plans, be it in a faculty level or overall, it addresses implementation areas of organization management and decision-making, personnel management, research and innovation and studies, and organizational communication. And I would name some of the measures we are preparing in Vilnius University Gender Equality Plan. We foresee and we encourage that all academic and non-academic departments who have more than 50 employees would prepare their own gender equality plan. Then we foresee and encourage that each department would have a gender equality coordinator. Like that, we would have a network of employees working with this topic, and we have already a good experience of having disability coordinators in each department. So we have some good practice. Also, we will be preparing recommendations for gender mainstreaming in organizational activities and communication processes. We will do a lot of trainings on gender equality on different topics in university. Also, we will extend monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of gender equality plan and on different sex disaggregated data, because some data we are already collecting from the years before. Then it will be work-life balance statements included in the already existing documents. Then we will approve a gender analysis methodology of Vilnius University academic and non-academic staff salaries, because we already started a few years before to gather data about gender pay gap, but for the moment we have only data about academic staff. Then we will prepare description of procedures for dealing and preventing with discrimination, mobbing, sexual harassment, and gender-based violence, and also recommendations for gender mainstreaming in research and development and curriculum. So to sum up about our experiences in Vilnius University, what are success factors? So for us, it's really easier to implement activities on gender equalities because we already have established structure for the development of it, because we gather data, we have organizational structure, human resources. Also, as I mentioned before, we were really lucky to participate in this Horizon 2020 SPEAR project because it was a good momentum. When we started to participate in this project back then, we didn't know that the European Commission will make obligatory to have gender equality plans for those institutions who want to participate in Horizon 2020 programs. Then we are really proud that we have already powerful faculties, frontrunner faculties who have already approved their own gender equality plans. Another success factor is participation in ARCOS consortium of 7 universities, which also promotes equality and diversity. And what are our challenges? That we have university is wide, big, and there is academic freedom of beliefs and speech. And in some parts of university, there is a lack of gender knowledge and awareness. Also, for the moment, though we have human resources to work with these issues, but at the same time, they are very limited with the spectrum of works we are planning to implement. And also, it is to work with the gender topic is a challenging topic, be it in university, be it in Lithuania and in general, because we have very sensitive socio-political situation at the moment regarding gender issues in Lithuania. So from my side, that would be all. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will be happy to answer questions if you will have any.
Thank you very much, dear Ruta, for this presentation of a very interesting case study of Vilnius University. And now we will have several minutes for questions. I will start maybe with this gender equality plan of Vilnius University. Of course, is a tool for change, and it's, as you said, allowing to systematically address causes of inequalities, to challenge structural inequalities. It impacts changes in approaches, behavior, consciousness, and expression of it, especially gender-sensitive language, as it was addressed from Vilnius University. It was met very strongly even through all our societies. So, dear Ruta, could you please elaborate a little bit more on the use of gender-sensitive language as one of the measures within your university's gender equality plan, and what challenges you are overcoming during this period in your community, and how you will overcome this negative attitudes from the public, from parliament, from other academic communities outside Vilnius University.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for the question. So we did not expect that creating gender-sensitive language and those guidelines which is just pure recommendations. It's not any document approved by any kind of governing body in Vilnius University, that gender-sensitive language would have such a huge echo in a whole society, which was the case, and it was greatly, how to say, and a lot discussed in all channels of media. So basically, well, to summarize, Lithuanian languages like, for example, like German language, where we have endings, or it can be with feminine or masculine endings. So these recommendations suggest, or in speech, or in correspondence, or even in documents, if it is applicable, to use endings which would show, for example, if we are talking to a group of students, and in that group of students there is n male and female students, we can say, for example, studente and studentes, and not just studenti, which would mean only male students. The same applies, you know, if it is just group of female students, then we are not calling them vice versa, that it's just male students. So basically, this document shows how properly in Lithuanian language to use those endings. And also it discusses the more, how to say, more provocative way how to talk in gender-sensitive language, but that is not the main, how to say, the main perspective. And yes, it was a lot of resistance, and Birutė Sabatauskaitė was talking a lot about anti-genderist movements, and we heard a lot of resistance from, well, far-right movements. And I would, you know, because they are talking that we are attacking Lithuanian language, that we are creating new kind of language. Like George Orwell was writing in his book 1984. But the main thing with language, what was our perspective when we, well, when professors were creating it, that our language represents our consciousness. And if our language could show more respect and address not only one gender, but at least both genders, so maybe we can do it, you know. And I would say that I would make a comparison in Lithuania that people are very afraid that making any kind of changes, though Lithuanian language is changing constantly, you know, but that it would ruin language as itself, as when we talk about gender issues in society, when we talking about partnership laws or LGBT people, then those far-right movements, they are talking that family is a family, which means a woman and a man union. The best if it, you know, happened in the church, that it maintains our society, and if we will ruin family, everything will, well, society will be ruined. So I would say that when emotions will how to say, calm down a bit, well, I can share that in university itself we have already some for example, some departments, academic or non-academic, or it can be even on personal level, that people just started to write letters or how to say, announcements where both sexes are addressed. And I think, well, there will be, of course, people who won't use and won't understand the need and will feel resistant, but people themselves will decide. It's nothing obligatory, you know. So it was hard for universities to stand up, well, to get all that resistance, but at the same time, gender-sensitive language guidelines were really well, how to say, promoted in whole society, and it's really up to people to choose. Those who speak, for example, I myself, I'm already writing diversity and equal opportunities reports, analysis, well, monitorings in gender sensitive language, and I am using it in my speeches. So after a few years of usage, it's like if I don't do it, it's like itching, because it really changes something in your well, perspective, how you see, and well, yeah, it seems I can't go back, but
thank you,
yeah.
Ruta. As we have another question,
Yeah.
so please reserve a little bit time. So Professor Gulsun wants to ask you also.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would like to thank you for this very interesting presentation. I've been to Vilnius University. We were evaluating institutional evaluation program of EUA. I was in the team, so it's a great university. I would like to ask you a question. We have had so many European funded projects in our universities, like your case. These projects help us to help us to realize the structural changes in a way. But if there is no cultural change, when the project's completed, the results are going to fade away, you know, throughout the years. So the cultural change is very important. What do you think about your case? Do you think that you have also maintaining the cultural change in a parallel fashion of the structural change? This is very important. This, according to my experience, that we have had so many projects throughout the years. So this cultural change, if there is no cultural change, then there is no expectation for long-term achievements.
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. So probably it's one of the motivators, you know, to keep on working with equal opportunities field, that we can see long term we can see only, but we can see changes and cultural changes. And I can give you an example. I can't say yet so much examples in gender equality field because we started to work quite recently. But I can give an example from field of disability where we are working already 6 years, that it used to be that, you know, we're talking with the different departments, like we have to prove that, oh, yes, for example, it needs to be accessibility, you know, for students with disability. And then we would get a question, but why? If there is just one person, maybe we can found roundabout and things like this. And in these years, it's not that we are going somewhere to prove our department or responsible person for this question, but it is that those departments responsible, for example, for infrastructure, they are calling us and they are saying, so could you say to us in which faculties, which places we still need to make it accessible? So kind of we have really a lot of good examples from working with disability, and we believe that it will come also about gender issues. Now we have a lot of discussions and it is in between generation, age-wise, you know, discussions about gender. But we believe that it will come cultural change, because it needs that, you know, some part of that, it would be critical mass of people who starts to behave different and think different. And well, academic community is very hopeful in that way, that they are very quick learners, you know. So as long as there are some supporters and front runners, it's our motivators. Yes, if I answered your question.
Thank you.
So, thank you, dear Ruta. And you have another question. Maybe we can connect somehow this panel discussion, because we see that the time is going on, and maybe we can say that we started already panel discussion. And please, Natalia, also join us, as we do not have Birute connected. So we have two speakers, Ruta and Natalia. And maybe dear Lucina Alicia Wozniak wants also to ask.
Thank you.
Which presenter? I do not know.
Thank you very much. I have two questions. I'm coming from the university where formally we really have equal opportunities and equal and gender balance, because among 700 researchers with R3 or R4, it means senior researchers, we have more than 340 women. So it's not bad. But I have two questions. First of all, what is a salary gap between men and women, female and male positions at your universities? Have you looked at that from the point of view of achieving the goals of reaching a really gender balance? This is first thing. And the second thing, second questions or comment I would like to have from you and ask you is about education. I think we can't reach a cultural success, economic success of women without education, general education to general public, to women, to local authorities, to professional authorities. Without this, without very wide actions within different, let's say, ecosystems, we will not reach sustainable gender balance. So what about these steps inside your institutions and also outside, addressed to general public, addressed to high schools, to schools, where these, let's say, cultural schemes have been created? So these are my comments and questions. I'm very happy to listen about Vilnius University. I also had the pleasure of visiting the university, and we collaborate within the European project Alliance for Life, where we also touch somehow these issues. But I think it's time to think more broadly about gender issue within community, and going down to high schools, to schools, and to general public. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lutina. Maybe Professor Natalia can react.
Yes, I would like to add here that it's time to discuss gender equality institutional infrastructure, how it is organized. And Ruta mentioned the case of Vilnius University, that there is a vice rector, then there is officer for equal opportunities, and there is project sphere organizational infrastructure is constituted in similar way at our university, and also we are going to establish new position of person working on gender equality. But taking into consideration this concern about cultural change and education for external audiences of teachers, I would say that it's important to include into this infrastructure gender studies centers. And there was comment on Vilnius University that this activity of this center are not visible. The same is about our university. Actually, gender studies experts work separately. They are not connected. And actually, now we raise question how this networking among activists and gender experts could be promoted. Actually, this gender studies experts, researchers, scholars, teachers should be invited and included into this institutional infrastructure. And we see that Vilnius University has many people working in this area, and during process of public deliberation of gender-sensitive language, many scholars from Vilnius University commented publicly and tried to present in their articles on Facebook the idea of this gender-sensitive language. So I would say that this moment is very important, not just to rely on formal infrastructure of gender work, on formal positions, but also to invite and to encourage institutionally, encourage gender studies experts and activists, and it would allow to carry out such activities as writing articles, as being public intellectuals for external audiences, for teachers. So I would say that it is important issue which we need to discuss at our universities.
Thank you so much. I see one question also in the chat box. The question is, what are your suggestions how to promote women integration to the highest positions in higher education institutions? And I know that Ruta mentioned quite good results, so maybe Ruta, you can comment on this.
Well, we have ideas, you know, more maybe non-formal ideas that maybe it could be some like leadership club where women would show by their examples and would, you know, encourage other women to participate and to have, you know, presentations on these topics, because for the moment what we will be implementing, the measures, they will not so much concentrate on the leadership itself, but bettering general working and studying conditions. But probably, you know, in general, talking about these issues and showing that institution is giving attention to this topic, it already should encourage some of, you know, women to participate in this.
Yes, thank you. Vilma Bieikienė wants to give a question. Please, Vilma.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be present at this discussion. I'm Vice Rector for Communication at Vytautas Magnus University. And I would just have a quick comment. and want to join the opinions expressed by Professor Wozniak about the importance of community and awareness raising within the community. I think that one of the recipes of how we can proceed with more of women in high positions and other authoritative positions, I would say that we need to start with teacher education. And this is something what we're doing at our university. We have started with a new model of teacher education and diversity, awareness raising on diversity, different aspects of diversity, including gender equality, is a very important part within it. So I think that teacher education is one step, how we can help our community, how we can help our society to be more sensitive, to be more open, to be more tolerant, to be more inclusive, and ultimately to give perspectives for women to achieve more in their careers in life. And I also agree with Ruta's idea about role model, showing role models. So teacher education plus showing good role models, integrating these experiences within teacher education, I think would be one of the ways which we are trying to do at Vytautas Magnus University.
Thank you, Vilma. And the Professor Gulsun also.
Yeah, I would like to make a comment only. I'm a professor in architecture. So, and coming from a technical university, I've been the rector of my university for 8 years, between 1996 to 2004. But during that period, I started to deal with this gender equality issues. And since 2009, I'm seriously doing research on gender equality in higher education, especially related to leadership area. But what I have observed till now, in our meetings, we do not have our male counterparts, you know. Well, we have to have them. Otherwise, because we are talking to each other, you know, sharing our views, but our target group are our male colleagues. So I think we have to take a very strong decision and take a very strong commitment to attract our male colleagues to our meetings, dear colleagues. Otherwise, you know, this is a very important issue because, you know, if we are feeling in the same way, I mean, there is no problem. But the problem with our male colleagues, so we have to have them. In the next webinar, I will try to do my best. I think this time we have only one colleague from Bulgaria. Georgi is here. I would like to have his opinion if he's still with us.
If Georgi is still with us, please connect and give your opinion on this webinar.
Is he with us?
Yes,
No.
yes. Just a minute.
Georgi,
okay.
Just a minute.
Georgi.
Just a minute.
Yes, so please, Georgi.
Just a minute, because my camera is doing something and I cannot switch it on.
So maybe you can reflect without camera. Oh, we see you.
Yeah, hello.
Hello,
everyone. Hello, everyone. First of all, I am, as many times, the only male in a webinar devoted to gender equality and women in academia. Second, I'm very glad always, because I learn lots of things from many different points of view. Third, I thank you so much, Gulsun, for inviting me always, because we are good friends and partners in very different projects. And also director of the university, because some years ago, I also was in Vilnius in your university as a member of external assessment board for accreditation. So I know your wonderful university and many times give it as an example of a good practice of many, many other things. But what regards the gender equality and gender equality plans, I know very well the work of your colleagues because we participated together in SPARE project. And I still remember our first meeting in Denmark when they were, how to say, they were not so familiar with lots of the issues related to gender equality, and we had wonderful time to discuss and to learn from each other. At that time, we had more experience than them because we used to participate in a previous project, FESTA, which was a base for a ground for developing it further, our work further in SPARE. So today I was very not only inspired but also impressed by the advancement, the development they had in this work. So congratulations in this. It was very interesting for me because we have very similar conditions in Bulgaria and we also face similar challenges. So I learned about new approaches of maintaining or dealing with such challenges. The situation in Bulgaria is even harder because Bulgaria was among the countries which didn't ratify the Istanbul Convention. And the word gender now has a very, very negative connotation. And there are not only debates in society, but also hostile acts at many places. And even recently, one of the Bulgarian courts asked officially the Constitutional Court to give an official interpretation of the word gender. So the Constitutional Court recently announced their decision, and the decision of the Constitutional Court is gender means only biological sex, nothing else, nothing, no social, no psychological, nothing, which again caused a huge debate in society. So it is not easy to work with gender and gender equality in our country, in our countries. And I always, when participating in such events, I'm very, very interested to learn different approaches and practices and innovative ways to deal with such resistances. And I often use our book on resistance,
Yes.
which was developed by Gülsün and her team, and Julia and her team from the Technical University. They were leading this, and I like very much this book and very often use it because sometimes it is easy to deal with active resistance, but the most difficult is to work with passive resistance, silent resistance, when people say, okay, I agree, but they do nothing. And that's why today I learned a lot. Thank you so much to my colleagues. I miss them because we are not anymore part of SPARE. And I was very interested to learn the advancement because I know their work to a certain point, but I didn't know, I don't know anything about the last months, and I'm impressed by the work they have done so far, and congratulations from me.
Thank you, Georgi. Dear colleagues, unfortunately our time is going to end, but before ending and closing, I want to ask all the attendees to turn their cameras on and to make a group photo for us, if it's possible. So just a moment, we will see more faces more colleagues who shared today, not only who shared as a speakers, but also who were today with us. A lot of issues were raised, and I am so happy that EWORA gives a possibility to such international audience, to leaders, to deans, to vice rectors, to connect together, to share our best practices, to share our challenges, what we are doing in academia, and how we are overcoming those challenges, especially in the COVID-19 situation. So let us make this photo together. My IT staff is watching. So thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to see you again in our future events. And I would like to say an enormous thanks to all our partners and to EWORA, to the presenters and speakers, and also to all the attendees today. And using the possibility, I would also like to thank Mykolas Romeris University hardworking team for their coordinational work and IT support here today during the webinar. Thank you all for joining us, and good luck for recreating our learning spaces, our learning communities, with hopes that we will all overcome the challenges and be stronger in a post-corona world, and we will go further with our important mission to implement gender mainstreaming, to implement gender approaches in our academia. So thank you very much once more, and see you in our future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this excellent organization, Inga.
Thank you. Thank you, Gulsun.
Thank
We
you
will meet
for
soon.
everything.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, colleagues.